Hey guys, tonight we're slipping off our shoes, ducking beneath a swaying curtain, and stepping softly into a sleepy little inn somewhere in medieval Japan. It's evening. The lanterns flicker, and the woodblock street outside is already damp with rain that hasn't fallen yet. You can hear the faint crackle of firewood from within, and someone, probably an old man, coughing behind a paper wall. You're not a samurai, or a monk, or a noble tonight, just a weary traveler. Which is perfect, because no one expects much from weary travelers. You'll pass through doorways made for shorter people, eat things you can't pronounce, and hear sounds you've never heard before, except maybe in your dreams, or a Studio Ghibli film. You'll try not to bump your head, and you'll definitely fail. And tonight, if you listen closely, you'll hear the soft padding of socks over tatami, distant drums that no one admits to hearing, and a cat who doesn't belong to anyone. Oh, and you probably won't survive this era, to be honest. The hygiene's questionable. Your shoes are made of straw, and you accidentally insulted someone's grandfather with your bow. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your city and local time in the comments. I love knowing where you're listening from. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge up a narrow dirt road, the daylight nearly gone. The path is flanked by rice fields on one side and forest on the other, just enough shadows to keep you from fully relaxing. A small sign appears, nailed crookedly to a post. It says nothing you can read, but someone has painted a tiny roof and a bowl of rice on it. Good enough. You reach a wooden gate just as the sky turns from blue to ink. It creaks when you push it open, not ominously, just authentically. There's a low lantern hanging to the side, its soft orange glow casting long shadows that sway with the wind. The air smells of wet pine and something fermenting nearby, possibly on purpose. A dog barks somewhere in the distance, then gives up. Sensible dog. The inn stands like it's been waiting just for you. One story, thatched roof, walls dark with age. It doesn't look like much, but compared to sleeping under a tree with nothing but your pack for a pillow, this is luxury. Smoke curls from a crooked chimney. Somewhere inside, you hear the muffled thunk of wood on wood. Maybe a mortar. Maybe someone dropped their Geta sandals. The step up to the inn's porch is high, you nearly trip. That's okay. The sign above the entrance is painted with faded characters. You duck beneath the Norrin curtain, a rectangle of indigo-dyed fabric with slits down the middle, and feel its frayed edge brush against your forehead. The cloth smells faintly of soy and rain. Inside, it's warmer. Immediately, your ears adjust. There's a quiet hush, but it's not silent. Somewhere down the corridor, you hear the soft rustle of fabric. A kettle whistles lightly. Paper walls barely muffle the occasional cough or polite laugh. The floor is wooden, worn to a shine. You glance down, muddy footprints are frowned upon here. At the entryway, there's a small step and a row of cubbyholes for shoes. Yours squeak as you remove them. The inn slippers, straw-bottomed, too small, slightly damp, await. It's fine. It's all fine. Welcome, a voice says. You look up to find the inn's okami, a woman likely in her 50s, but her expression makes it hard to tell. She's wearing a pale saffron kimono with wide sleeves, and her hair is pinned up with a single lacquered stick. She bows. You return the gesture, hoping the angle is appropriate. You probably overdo it. She gestures toward a low bench near the ledger table. There, you see a brush, a ceramic inkwell, and a ledger with rows of names written with varying degrees of grace and ink splotches. You sign. Well, you try. Your name ends up looking like a startled fish. She doesn't mind. A coin passes between you and her sleeve. The amount was agreed upon beforehand. Or maybe it wasn't. Either way, she nods as if everything is in order. You think you're still overpaying, but honestly, it feels worth it already. She asks if you'll need a bath. You nod. She says dinner is at the 8th bell, or, as modern you might say, soonish. You nod again. At this point, you're basically a bobblehead. The okami steps aside, allowing you to follow the narrow hallway. Your slippers flop against your heels with each step. The walls are paper and wood. You try not to glance into rooms as you pass, but you still catch flashes of seated figures, folded robes, a single candle flame illuminating a withered old man polishing a flute. Every few meters, the hallway turns. Every turn feels like entering a different house. At one point, a breeze sneaks in through an open panel, bringing with it the scent of plum blossoms. A small wind chime sings once, then hushes. You reach your room. It's simple. Just a futon rolled in the corner, a window shuttered with thin wood slats, and a single standing lantern glowing like a firefly in a jar. The okami slides the door shut behind you with a soft click. You kneel. You breathe. The quiet is louder than expected. For the first time today, your shoulders drop from your ears. Outside, a frog begins to croak. Somewhere in the building, a young guest sneezes. And in the tiny world of your rented room, you feel time slip sideways. There are no clocks here, no notifications. Just tatami, the soft scent of ash and cedar, and the knowledge that the world can wait. Tomorrow will come. But tonight, you've arrived. You sit quietly, just letting your breath slow down. The floor beneath you creaks softly, not from age or disrepair, but from use. Hundreds of travelers before you have knelt here, peeled off their layers, sighed into the stillness. You're just the latest in a long line of aching backs and sore feet. Somehow, that thought feels reassuring, like this little room has been trained in how to care for the tired. You notice the lantern in the corner flickers slightly, not from a breeze, but likely from its own stubborn wick. It casts long shadows against the washi paper wall, and for a moment, it almost looks like the silhouette of a tree, or maybe a crane, stretching one wing. You crawl forward on your knees to slide open the wooden shutter. Outside, the sun is gone, but the sky still glows with a soft, charcoal blue haze. You spot fireflies in the garden below, bobbing like sleepy stars. And closer, there's the faint outline of a bamboo fountain, shishi odoshi. You know, the one that fills with water, tips, and makes that thunk sound like a polite knock on an empty room. You'll hear it every so often tonight. Some find it annoying. You'll probably find it meditative, or at least predictable, which in this world is a kind of luxury. The scent of incense creeps in, too subtle to name. Something temple adjacent, maybe sandalwood, or a dried flower you've never smelled outside a Kyoto souvenir shop. There's a gentle knock-knock at the paper door, almost like the inn itself is asking permission. You rise, careful not to stand too quickly. Your knees complain as if you've aged a decade in this hour alone. You open the sliding panel, and a girl, no older than 12, bows in quick, efficient motion. In her hands, a small black lacquered tray, 2 ceramic cups, and a narrow teapot, steaming from its spout like a dragon trying not to draw attention. "Ocha," she says softly, placing the tray inside. She doesn't wait to be thanked, just bows again and glides off like a character from a no play. You barely heard her footsteps. The tea is hot, earthy, slightly bitter. You sip slowly, letting it coat your tongue. It's not meant to be sweet. It's meant to wake your inner organs, whatever that means. You're fairly certain at least one of yours is already asleep. You set the cup down, its base clinking against the lacquer. From beyond the hallway, you hear a wooden flute begin a slow, aching melody. Someone in another room is practicing or remembering. It's not polished or loud, but it sounds honest, like maybe it's been a long time since they played. You don't recognize the tune, and that makes it feel even older. Historians still argue whether inns like this were mostly used by samurai, monks, or peasants. It probably depends on who wrote the record and who was funding the scribe. But inns or hatago, in some regions, weren't just about sleep. They were places of exchange, of gossip, of rumors traveling faster than horses. One whispered story could get halfway across the country by breakfast. And in this moment, you're part of that fabric. You, with your weird tea breath and modern spine, sitting in a building older than most nations. You glance around your room again. The walls are thin. Of course they're meant to be. Privacy wasn't really part of the design ethos here. The idea was more about boundaries of respect than silence. You hear someone sneeze 3 rooms over. Someone coughs once, then again like a punctuation mark. The sneeze doesn't apologize. That's fine. You'll forgive it. A scroll painting hangs in the corner. Its paper faded but graceful. You lean closer. It depicts a single pine tree on a cliff, inked with such minimal strokes it's almost abstract. Below it, a poem just 5 lines in flowing script. You can't read it, but it looks sad, in that beautiful, noble way that Japanese sadness tends to wear as a badge of honor. You sit back. A soft groan escapes from the floorboard under your thigh. You smile. Here's your quirky tidbit for the night. Some Japanese inns in the Edo period reportedly kept a mosquito journal, a handwritten log detailing mosquito sightings, bites, and guest complaints, possibly for both practical reasons and mild amusement. Tonight, you've seen none yet, but this is only hour 1. You lie back for a moment on the rolled-out futon. It's firmer than you'd expect. Your hips are going to file a formal complaint in the morning. But there's a kind of elegance to how little there is. No fluff. No fluff needed. Just you, the straw mat, and a pillow that feels like it's filled with sand or beans or broken promises. It's fine. You'll adapt. The ceiling beams above you are exposed. Dark wood with spiderweb hairlines of time running across them. You can almost picture a carpenter smoothing them centuries ago, pausing every few feet to sip sake and curse his sore back. These beams have seen war, famine, harvest, song, and now your socks. Outside, the wind brushes gently against bamboo leaves. That distant shishi odoshi finally tips and hits its stone. Thunk. You exhale. Sleep tugs at you, but the night is young. Somewhere nearby, a cat yowls. Somewhere farther, a drunk guest starts humming a song that may or may not be a hymn. There's comfort here, not just in warmth or quiet, but in the shared agreement of weariness. Everyone here, from the silent samurai to the elderly merchant with his aching knees, is tired. That's the one truth this inn seems built around. You pour yourself another cup of tea. Why not? If the mosquitoes don't come tonight, the caffeine probably will. You sip. The lantern flickers again. And somewhere out in the hallway someone laughs. Not loudly, but enough to remind you, you're not alone. You stretch your legs, careful not to knock over the lacquer tray. The tea's warmth still lingers in your chest. And your feet, though still a bit numb from the road, are grateful for the lack of shoes. Straw slippers and tatami might not sound luxurious by modern standards, but right now, they're better than silk. The paper walls rustle again. A breeze moves through the hallway, pushing the air with that soft hush only a wooden inn can make. You rise and slide open your door an inch, just enough to peek. The corridor is empty, dimly lit by lanterns mounted on the wall, each one flickering as if unsure whether to keep burning. The shadows stretch like ink, spills across the floorboards, trembling as the lanterns sway. You hear voices not clear, but not secretive either, just human. Down the hallway, there's a low creak. Then the unmistakable shoosh thunk of a fusuma sliding open. A barefoot figure, tall, slow-moving, drifts out and into another room. You only catch the back, shaved head, tan robe, thin shoulders. A monk maybe, or someone pretending to be one. Hard to tell from a silhouette. You slide your own door wider and step into the corridor. The air is cooler here. The hallway stretches ahead and curves at both ends, forming an elegant maze of quiet rooms, woven mats, and wooden floors. You're not trying to explore, not really. You're just wandering, like the building itself has more stories than it's letting on. And then you hear it. Footsteps, just ahead. Soft, but too consistent to be random. Not the scuffle of children, not the shuffle of the old. Measured, purposeful. A rhythm that suggests either discipline or someone trying very hard not to sound like anything at all. You pause by a decorative alcove, A single ceramic vase sits inside it, dried flowers fanning out from its mouth like a fossilized firework. The flowers are brittle, colorless, and yet clearly arranged with obsessive care. This is not a casual hallway. You crouch slightly, pretending to admire the arrangement. The footsteps pass. Sandals, straw, nothing more. And just like that, they're gone. Welcome to the delightful paranoia of thin walls and unknown neighbors. Some historians still argue whether Japanese inns of this era provided silent protection, meaning informal bodyguards for high-profile guests, or if that's just an invention of later romantic fiction. But even if you're not anyone special tonight, that doesn't mean others here aren't. You continue walking, slower now. You pass another doorway, this one open just a crack, and catch the faint scent of grilled eel. Not fresh, but lingering, like the ghost of a dinner already devoured. At the end of the corridor, a door hangs open fully, revealing a larger room. You stop in the shadow of the frame. Inside, it's a common room, not a tavern, not a party hall, but a place for guests to exist in proximity. A small hearth glows in the center, surrounded by cushions. Around it, 4 or 5 guests sit cross-legged, leaning in toward the heat. One fans the coals, another picks his teeth with a sliver of wood. They're dressed simply, travel-stained and sun-wrinkled. No one looks particularly rich or particularly sober. Someone lets out a half-hearted belch, followed by a chuckle. You feel invisible at the edge of the room, which is just how you like it. You linger there, silent. A figure shifts, an elderly woman wrapped in layered robes, her face a constellation of lines. She hums softly, tunelessly. One of the men asks if she remembers the story of the blue fox spirit. She waves him off. She only visits poets, she murmurs, and there are none left worth haunting. The others laugh, but not at her, more like at the memory of someone who once wrote verses for a living and got bitten for it. You back away before they notice you, not because you're afraid, but because this feels like a room you enter only when invited. You retrace your steps to your room, passing a guest who nods once as he passes. He has the sharp jaw of a soldier and the eyes of someone who hasn't decided if he's left that life behind. You nod back. No words exchanged, just that quiet acknowledgement. Yes, we're both guests tonight. Tomorrow? Who knows? You slide your door closed and sit down once more. The tea is lukewarm. The room feels smaller than before, but cozier somehow. Safer. You roll your shoulders, trying to work out a kink in your neck. Then, instinctively, you press your ear to the wall. It's not something you planned. It just feels like the kind of place where walls whisper if you're willing to listen. Through the paper, you catch snippets. Salted turnip, bad road, the price of sake in Kamakura. Nothing treasonous. Just the kinds of conversations that keep people anchored to the real world, while everything outside spins a little too fast. Here's your quirky tidbit for this section. Some Japanese inns reportedly had secret sliding panels built into guest rooms. Not for spying officially, but for checking on safety, regulating behavior, and sometimes retrieving unattended teacups. Whether you believe that or not depends on how comfortable you are with the idea that you were never alone to begin with. A soft knock sounds at your door again. This time, it's the Okami herself. She bows, says your bath is ready, and gestures down the hallway. You bow back and follow. The bathhouse is tucked in the far corner of the inn. A sliding door reveals a changing room, lit with one single lantern. Wooden shelves line the walls, each one filled with neatly folded yukata robes and small cloth towels. You strip down, feeling weirdly self-conscious even though no one's around. You slide open the inner door. Steam rolls over your face like a warm towel. Inside, the ofuro deep and square is filled nearly to the brim. The water is still, hot, and it smells faintly of cedar and smoke. You step in, and the world disappears. The heat is sharp at first, biting, almost angry, but your muscles accept it like an overdue apology. You sink to your shoulders, your hair dampening, your pulse slowing. There are no jets, no bubbles, Just silence, water, and wood. This bath doesn't want to entertain you. It wants to return you to yourself. You close your eyes. Thunk. In the distance, the bamboo fountain tips again. You smile. The water wraps around you like a warm silence, full, enveloping, honest. You sink a little deeper until it kisses your chin, and then lean back, letting your spine rest against the smooth wooden edge. It creaks softly in protest, or perhaps in understanding. There's something ancient about this particular kind of quiet. Not empty, just filtered. No phones, no clocks, no engines. Just water licking against the sides of the tub, the distant creak of the inn's beams stretching their old bones, and somewhere, always somewhere, that bamboo fountain tapping out its lopsided rhythm like a lazy monk keeping time. You let your limbs float, your knees surfacing, your fingers wrinkling. For the first time in hours, your body feels less like luggage and more like something alive again. Another door slides open. You glance sideways discreetly, because that's polite, and see a man enter, maybe 30 or 40, with the build of someone who's lifted sacks of rice or wrestled pigs for most of his adult life. He bows before stepping into the bath, pours a wooden bucket of warm water over his shoulders, first etiquette, and sinks in with a grateful groan that sounds oddly universal. You exchange a nod. That's the entire conversation, which, honestly, is more than enough. Bathhouses like these were shared always, and that meant shared silence, shared steam, and occasionally shared rumors. Some inns even kept a small chest of wooden toys, mini boats, carved frogs for children who bathed with their parents. You wonder briefly if those frogs ever went missing, spirited away by some sneaky child convinced they were sacred, or haunted. The man eventually mutters something about bad roads near Hakone and a dishonest blacksmith. You nod again, and he takes that as agreement. You have no idea where Hakone is from here, but the bath is not the place to correct geography. Historians still argue whether women were ever allowed into public baths in inns like this. Some records suggest they bathed at different times of day. Others claim the entire idea of privacy is a modern invention we project backward onto cultures that were just more fluid about space. You soak a little longer, skin turning soft as tofu. Eventually, the steam begins to lull you into a dreamy kind of emptiness. Not sleep, just the kind of calm that makes you forget where your elbows are. You exit the bath slowly, wrapping a thin towel around your waist and shuffling back into the changing room. The yukata robe provided is light, woven cotton, smelling faintly of cedar and starch. You tie the sash clumsily, it doesn't matter. You're not trying to impress anyone. And even if you were, this robe would do you no favors. It's humble, shapeless, and incredibly comfortable, like a bedtime apology from the universe. Back in the hallway, you notice the lanterns have dimmed. Not off, just turned down, like the whole building is starting to whisper. You return to your room, hair damp, face flushed from heat. The futon has been laid out while you were gone, neatly arranged, with a tiny embroidered pillow placed dead center like a ceremonial offering. A folded mosquito net sits beside it, waiting to be draped. The Okami's daughter must have done it while you bathed, or the inn itself did. You're not sure anymore. You sit on the edge of the futon. The paper wall breathes a little as you do. And that's when you hear it. Laughter. Not the polite kind from earlier. This one is sharper, low, intentional. Someone just chuckled through their nose. You lean in. A voice follows, muffled but male. Then another higher pitched, maybe mocking. You can't make out the words, but the tone? That's universal. You inch closer to the wall. Something clinks metal, maybe? Number ceramics. Cups. You realize it's the room next to yours. 3 men, maybe 4, talking in hushed tones that occasionally spike with suppressed amusement. You catch the word Ronin, masterless samurai. Then the phrase, paper blade, which sounds like an insult, though you're not sure for whom. You're reminded of something. Inns like this didn't only serve the weary. They sometimes serve the hunted, or the hiding, or the men who'd chosen to step out of official stories and into the footnotes. That's the thing about places with thin walls. You learn more than you want. You slide back, just enough to avoid being the person caught listening. You're still damp, still warm, but now your nerves hum faintly. Not in fear, just awareness. The same way you'd feel if a storm was circling nearby but hadn't yet struck. Your quirky tidbit for this moment: some old inns were built with hidden doors between certain rooms, not for escape, but for eavesdropping or spying, especially during the Edo period, when paranoia was practically a survival skill. In other words, your listening habits tonight are practically historic. You lie back, gaze settling on the ceiling. The beams above look unchanged since you last saw them, but now they seem to watch you in return. You wonder how many secrets they've absorbed, how many midnight conversations, how many promises made just before dawn and broken before breakfast. The laughter next door fades. A cough. A silence. Then, nothing. You roll onto your side, adjusting the pillow. It crinkles faintly, as if filled with rice husks. Your body sinks into the futon. The mosquito net isn't up yet, but for now, it rests beside you, like a patient ghost. Outside, a soft wind stirs. A chime rings faintly. One note, and then silence again. You close your eyes, and just as you begin to drift, you hear a knock. Not on your door, but somewhere else. Too slow to be urgent. Too soft to be casual. Just there. 3 knocks. Then silence. You don't move. Whatever it wasn't for you. At least, not yet. You lie completely still. The knocks came from somewhere deeper in the inn, down a hallway or around a corner far enough to ignore, close enough to remember. No doors open. No footsteps follow. Just 3 knocks. Then silence. Like someone knocked, forgot why, and left. Your eyes adjust to the darkness again. The lantern in your room is dim now, the flame reduced to a sleepy flicker like it's trying to lull itself to sleep too. Shadows pool in the corners. You can hear the shishiodoshi outside again, more deliberate now. Or maybe your mind just wants it to be. You sit up slowly, brushing your hand against the mosquito net. It's soft and gauzy, thin as breath. You unfold it gently, as you've seen in travel guides and period dramas, draping it over the wooden frame. It settles like mist. Your bed becomes a tiny tent, a glowing cocoon against whatever insect, spirit, or curious gaze might wander in. You exhale. The fabric sways slightly as you breathe. They say sleeping under a mosquito net in ancient Japan wasn't just about bugs. It was spiritual too, a symbolic barrier. The net defined your space not just physically, but cosmically. Inside the net, safety, sleep, your own little slice of stillness. Outside, everything else. You lie back, hands on your chest, like a character waiting for a dream to pick them up. Your body hums with post-bath warmth, your skin cool from evaporation. And slowly, gently, your thoughts begin to unravel. You almost fall asleep, but then you hear it again. This time, not a knock, a soft shuffle. Bare feet or socks? You freeze, eyes wide open in the dark. It passes your room, doesn't pause, doesn't rush, just glide past. And again, silence. Of course, people move at night, especially in inns like these. Maybe they were headed to the toilet, or to refill a kettle. Or maybe it was that mysterious Ronin with the rain-soaked sleeves and thousand-yard stare. Still, you wait a full minute before exhaling, just to be sure. Then you shift, trying to settle again. Outside, the bamboo fountain drops its usual thunk. And this time, you notice it's echoed by another sound, a soft drum beat, far off, from deeper in the valley. Or maybe it's your own heart. The acoustics in this place are unpredictable. You half wonder if the walls bend sound just to keep things interesting. Historians still argue whether inns were truly as peaceful, as romanticized, or if we're projecting our own modern desire for rustic tranquility. Many of these places were loud, full of travelers, children, animals, even the occasional brawl. But memory smooths things. Time sands down the sharp edges. Tonight, though, tonight is quiet. You close your eyes again. This time, you dream. And what a dream. You're walking through a pine forest. The trees part ahead of you like they know you're coming. The air smells of rain and ink. You follow a dirt path, and somewhere up ahead, a small shrine glows faintly under a beam of moonlight. At the entrance stands a fox white, with eyes too human, too knowing. It tilts its head and speaks, though not with words. It just is, and you understand it anyway. It asks you where you're going. You say you don't know. It laughs without sound. Then it vanishes. You reach the shrine. Inside, a mirror. You step forward. The reflection shows you in your yukata, hair damp, eyes sleepy, but the mirror version of you smiles before you do. Then, you wake. Not from fear, just the kind of wake that happens when dreams reach their natural ending. A gust of wind rattles the wooden shutter. It's still dark, still night, but something has shifted. The air is colder. The silence has weight to it now. You sit up, rub your face, check your surroundings. Nothing changed, yet everything feels thinner. The mosquito net rustles slightly. You hear something outside the window, a faint clatter. You crawl forward, gently pushing open the slatted shutter to peer into the courtyard. And there it is. The cat, that calico you've seen once or twice today, curled now on the edge of the wooden veranda, eyes half open, tail twitching in that slow, superior way only cats can manage. It looks at you, and then it sneezes. You both pause. It sneezes again, then blinks slowly. Your quirky fact of the hour? In Edo-era Japan, some believed that cats could see spirits, that they were protectors from the unseen. But here's the twist: others thought cats were the spirits, shapeshifters, ghosts in disguise. The deciding factor? The length of their tails. Too long? Too suspicious. Short tails were safer. You squint at this one. Its tail? Inconclusive. It stretches once, then pads away. Its footsteps completely silent on the wooden boards. The night swallows it whole. You sit back, unsure whether that was a superstition, a blessing, or just an allergic animal looking for somewhere warm. Somewhere deep inside the inn, a floorboard groans. Not nearby, just enough to remind you the building breathes. You lie back down, pulling the robe tighter. Your pillow shifts beneath your head with a soft crunch. The straw inside resettles like tiny voices murmuring their approval. You're not quite ready to sleep again, but you're close. You focus on the sounds, the fountain's rhythm, the breath of the wind, the occasional cough or snore from other rooms. They're not intrusive, they're grounding. Like someone draped the night over your shoulders and said, "Here, this one's on the house." You close your eyes once more. This time, you don't dream. This time, you simply float. You're not sure how long you've been asleep when you wake again. It's not sudden, not jarring, just one of those slow surfacings from deep rest, like your body has risen to the top of a still lake while your mind lingers at the bottom. Your eyes don't open at first. There's no alarm, no voice, no danger, just the feeling that something has changed. You listen. There's the steady drip of water from somewhere outside. The soft rustle of paper sliding against wood, someone opening a door, and then the faintest clink of ceramic. A teacup, maybe, or a bottle being set down. Your eyelids lift slowly. The room is dark, but not silent. A muted blue-gray light slips through the wooden slats of the shutter. Not moonlight, dawnlight. Faint, early, uncertain, like the sun's just peeking in to see if it's welcome. You sit up. Your blanket has shifted off one shoulder, the mosquito net draped like a theater curtain halfway open. The air is cooler now, not cold, just touched by the idea of morning. You yawn, long and deep, as your joints remind you they are, in fact, medieval now. The futon beneath you is still warm, Your yukata robe is bunched at the waist. You shift your weight and hear the soft sigh of the straw mat. And that's when you hear it. A quiet, sweeping sound, swish, 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 coming from outside your window. You rise slowly, stretching one arm toward the ceiling beam like a vine seeking sunlight. The wood above is still in shadow, but less so now. You pad barefoot to the shutter, slide it aside, and lean against the cool frame. Below, in the courtyard, the inn's cleaning woman is sweeping with a bundle of bamboo twigs. The broom is longer than she is tall, but she handles it like a dancer fluid, practiced, almost ceremonial. She pauses, leans the broom against the wall, and scoops up a few fallen leaves. Her sleeves brush the ground. Her back doesn't flinch. She's done this for decades, you can tell. Beyond her, the garden is soft with mist, not heavy, just a light fog curling between the stepping stones and around the base of the pine tree at the center. It looks like something out of an ink painting, or maybe the ink painting looks like this. In one corner, a man, thin, gray-bearded, practices with a buchan, a wooden sword. His movements are slow, deliberate, more like meditation than combat. He doesn't notice you. Or if he does, he chooses not to. You pull back from the window. The light has shifted inside to blue, fading into pearl. And somewhere nearby, you hear the splash of water again. The bath is being refilled. Or maybe another guest has risen before you. Overachiever. You stand, fold your blanket, and move, with that morning stiffness you didn't realize had arrived overnight. Every movement feels like a soft apology to your body, but the aches are clean ones, honest ones. You slide open your door. The hallway is different now. Lanterns are extinguished. The scent of smoke has faded, replaced by that of damp wood, breakfast rice, and something pickled, possibly violently pickled. The inn feels alive in a different way now. Not secretive, not shadowed, just awake, like a long exhale. You follow the scent toward what must be the dining room. As you turn the corner, a young boy brushes past you carrying a tray. On it, tiny bowls, a folded cloth, a single umeboshi plum that looks more like a threat than a fruit. He doesn't look up, just nods and keeps moving with the speed of someone told do not drop this under any circumstances. The dining room is modest. No grand hall, no clattering buffet. Just a few low tables and straw cushions, a long window looking out into the garden, and an open hearth at the center. A kettle steams gently over it, its belly blackened by years of service. You sit. A mat, a bowl, a small tray is placed in front of you without fanfare. Breakfast. One bowl of okayu rice gruel, thick and mild, the kind that hugs your stomach without ambition. A side of pickled radish. A tiny dish of fermented soybeans that smell, let's say, complex. And miso soup, of course light, with thin slices of scallion and one lonely cube of tofu floating like a shipwrecked survivor. You bow, as is custom, even if no one is watching, and you eat, slowly, respectfully. There's no rush. The world outside may be moving, but in here, time's still tied up in a rice knot. Historians still argue whether meals at Japanese inns were designed for nourishment or ceremony. The portions were modest, but the presentation always careful, aligned just so. Colors balanced, textures chosen for their interplay. You can see it here. Even your spoonless breakfast feels like it passed through at least one artist's hands. Your quirky fact? Some travelers in the Edo period carried tiny travel chopsticks made of ivory or lacquered wood. Folding ones. Engraved. Utensils were status symbols. And yes, people definitely judged your taste based on how you picked up a pickled plum. You glance around. Other guests are eating in quiet, respectful silence. A merchant whispers something to his wife. A younger man, maybe a messenger, scarfs down his meal, like someone who's been walking all week. And across the room, the samurai from last night sits alone, his back straight, eyes scanning the garden. He eats with precision, no wasted movements. His robe today is navy, with a faint family crest near the collar. You're not sure if he slept. You're not sure he sleeps at all. You finish the miso. A final sip of rice gruel. You bow once more. The tray is collected without a word. You return to your room, stomach full but not heavy, just settled. You gather your things. Not much. A cloth-wrapped bundle. The borrowed yukata stays behind. A small talisman has been left beside your pillow-folded mulberry paper with a single red stamp. A farewell gift, maybe. Or a blessing. Or a warning. The inn has its customs. You tie your bundle, take one last look around, and as you slide the door closed behind you, the latch clicks softly, like punctuation. Outside, the day begins in full, and you're almost ready for it. You walk the corridor one last time, this time as someone who knows it. The boards creak where they creaked before, and the smells of breakfast now fading still cling to the corners of the hallway. There's something about morning in a place like this that feels like a handshake between the old world and today. You pass another guest. He's older, wearing a patched robe, bent slightly forward. He nods at you with a look that could mean, "Good morning," or "I remember when this inn was new." You nod back, trying to match the gravity of whatever memory just passed between you. At the front, the Okami is already sweeping the porch. Her broom is shorter than the one you saw earlier, and she moves slowly, deliberately, making each sweep count. She doesn't acknowledge you immediately, not because she's rude, but because her rhythm is older than you are. You step into the small entry room where your shoes were left. There they are, still damp, still caked with road dust, still yours. You sit on the wooden bench, your knees popping in protest, and slide your feet in. They don't feel right anymore. After the warmth of tatami, straw sandals feel like a step back into reality. They flap against your soles. You're returning to the outside, to uneven roads and unpredictable weather. But now, you're padded with something invisible, a layer of stillness. You approach the front desk. The same load table, the same ink-stained ledger. This time, you bow first. The Okami sets her broom aside, wipes her hands on her apron, and returns the bow deeper this time. A mutual recognition. We did this well. She produces a small wooden tray. On it, your final tally. You expected it to be higher, but then again, this isn't a business transaction anymore. This is closure, ritual. You place your coins gently, and she picks them up without counting. Instead, she reaches beneath the counter and produces a small parcel wrapped in white cloth. She hands it to you. You open it just enough to peek inside. A few dried persimmons, a strip of rice paper with a hand-drawn pine tree, and a slip of paper with 3 kanji written in red ink. You don't recognize the characters, but they feel like they mean safe travels. Or maybe don't forget what you felt here. You bow again. She smiles this time just a little and says, "The road ahead is wide." And then you're outside, beneath the Norin curtain again. It flutters gently behind you as you pass through. The morning air bites your nose. The scent of pine, smoke, and damp earth surrounds you again. But now, it's familiar. You carry part of the inn with you quietly, like a second heartbeat. The gate creaks as you pass through it. Same sound, same welcome. Only now, it's a farewell. Outside, the mist hasn't fully lifted. The road ahead winds between trees. You can hear the distant clop of hooves. Someone else is on the path already. Maybe a merchant. Maybe someone from the inn. You'll never know. You adjust your bundle, tug your robe tighter, and start walking. The dirt path is damp under your feet, but not slippery. The air is just cold enough to wake you. Just warm enough to not complain about it. And then you stop. Just once. You turn around. The inn sits behind you, half hidden by the morning mist and trees. It looks smaller now, less mysterious, like it could disappear entirely the moment you blink. And maybe it will. Some historians believe these inns were never meant to last forever. Built from wood and paper, they weren't designed for permanence. But that was never the point. Their purpose was to be enough shelter, enough warmth, enough memory to carry with you down the road. Others argue that some inns became immortal, not through their architecture, but through the stories told inside them. So you stare just a moment longer, and you say nothing, because saying something would break the spell. You turn back to the road and walk. Thunk. That bamboo fountain echoes again from far behind. Or maybe it's just in your head now. Your quirky tidbit before we go? In some regions of Japan, travelers believed that if they didn't look back at their lodging, they'd forget the comfort it gave and travel lighter. Others believed the opposite, that a single glance back could protect you from forgetting who you were when you slept there. You looked, which means you'll remember. Not just the taste of miso or the warmth of the bath, but the soft pad of slippers on wood, the laugh behind a wall, the cat who sneezed twice and judged you once. You'll remember it all. And maybe, years from now, when your feet are tired again, and your bones crave warmth, and the modern world feels like it's moving too fast, you'll hear the knock of a bamboo fountain in your dreams, and you'll know it's time to rest. The road crunches softly beneath your feet as you leave the inn behind. It's not a well-paved road, just packed dirt and scattered pebbles, but it stretches ahead with a kind of certainty. You're not entirely sure where it goes. That doesn't bother you. After a night like that, the destination doesn't matter nearly as much as the afterglow you're carrying in your bones. The trees on either side lean inward, as if eavesdropping on your thoughts. Morning birds stir in the branches, chirping in that half-committed way creatures do when they haven't decided if the sun is really up yet. Somewhere behind you, a rooster crows, but even he sounds half asleep. You round a bend and catch sight of a stone well just off the road, set beneath a crooked pine. A traveler is already there, filling a gourd with water, his horse dozing nearby, tethered to a stump. He nods at you. You nod back. Again, no words. Just that quiet, shared understanding between people who sleep light and travel early. As you get closer, he clears his throat and says, "You came from the inn up the hill." You nod once. He smiles faintly, more to himself than to you. Still standing then. You tilt your head. Still standing? He chuckles. Place has been there since my grandfather's time. Maybe longer. Some say it was built by a retired monk. Others say it used to be a gambling den. Or a brothel. Depends who you ask. N. You ask what he thinks. He shrugs. I think it's one of those places that just shows up when you're tired enough to need it. Then he climbs onto his horse and rides off. Slowly, hooves thunking on the packed earth like punctuation marks. You're left with the well, the pine, and that sentence hanging in the air. A place that shows up when you're tired enough to need it. You like that. You step to the well and lean against its cool stone edge. The bucket hangs motionless, the rope frayed but strong. You draw it up halfway, splash some water on your face. It's shockingly cold, like someone punched your cheeks awake. As you wipe your face dry with your sleeve, you catch sight of a scrap of paper tucked under the edge of the well's rim. Someone must have left it behind. You ease it out. It's a prayer slip. Faded ink. A few kanji. You recognize one luck, though you're not sure if it's a request or a warning. You place it back carefully. Not yours to take. And you walk on. A little farther down the road, a wide clearing opens. On one side, an elderly merchant has set up a small stand with goods spread on a cloth. Carved combs, lucky charms, half-dried persimmons. You pause, not a greeting. He doesn't try to sell you anything. Instead, he gestures to a wooden box by his feet and says, "Message board." You glance inside. Tiny folded papers, some stamped, some just names. A traveler's method of leaving word behind. I passed this way. I'm heading west. Tell Hiroshi his son as well. You consider leaving your own note. But what would you write? Stayed at an inn. Still feel it in my bones. Not sure if I dreamed it. May go back. May never find it again. You decide to leave nothing. Or maybe everything. As you walk on, the trees begin to thin. The land flattens out into low fields. dotted with scarecrows and crows that clearly aren't scared. Smoke curls from a farmhouse in the distance. A farmer waves. You wave back. The world starts to resemble itself again. Routine, predictable, loud in a different way. And yet you feel different. Lighter, maybe, or just keyter inside. It's a feeling that resists naming, like standing in snow and realizing it's not cold because your heart is too full to care. Here's your historical tidbit. Many rural inns in medieval Japan served as informal post stations. Travelers could send or receive messages, rest their horses, or share information about road conditions. But just as often, they were memory palaces. People remembered them not for their comfort, but for what happened within their walls. Confessions, secrets, stolen glances, or the rare, quiet nights when nothing happened at all. And your quirky bit? There's a legend that if you revisit a Japanese inn in your dreams 3 times, the 4th time you go, it will be gone. Not abandoned. Just not there. No foundation. No roof. Just mist and wildflowers where it once stood. So the saying goes, treasure the first visit, don't overstay the second, and never ask for the third. You keep walking. The road splits at a weathered signpost, its characters worn nearly illegible by rain and time. You choose the left fork, not because it seems better, but because the breeze nudges you that way. Maybe you're imagining it. Or maybe the wind remembers you now. It carries the scent of cedar and something else. Miso? You smile. Must be a house nearby cooking breakfast. You keep walking, but as you do, a sound floats back to you. One you recognize. The shishi odoshi. Faint. Faint enough to question, but definitely there. Thunk. And then, silence. You don't turn around. You just keep going, with that sound tucked inside your chest like a folded paper crane. A sound you'll hear again not tonight, maybe not ever, but someday, when your body is tired, and your soul even more so. And on that day, maybe, just maybe, you'll find another curtain swaying gently in the wind. And step inside. The path leads you along the edge of a rice field now. Water shimmering in the morning light, like panes of glass scattered across the earth. Each stalk bows gently, not yet ripe, but already standing in orderly rows, disciplined, dutiful. You watch a heron take off in the distance, wings unfolding like slow fan. Its cry cuts through the stillness, and for a moment, you imagine it's calling you back. But you don't turn around. There's nothing behind you that isn't already part of you now. A farmer in a conical straw hat waves from the far side of the field. You raise a hand in return, your fingers still slightly wrinkled from last night's bath. Funny, the way a single night can leave such lasting marks. Not just on the body, but on the rhythm of your thoughts. Your pace is slow, not out of exhaustion, but intention. You're carrying something invisible now, a quiet, a stillness that won't let itself be rushed. Each footstep lands gently, as though the ground deserves your respect. Eventually, you reach a roadside tea stand, a simple wooden stall shaded by a cloth awning, smoke curling lazily from a brazier. The woman behind it is old enough that her eyes have folded into slivers, but sharp enough that you don't doubt she could count coins by sound alone. She greets you without words, just a bow, a gesture to the small bench, and a hand that already knows how you take your tea. You sit. The cup is ceramic, its glaze cracked into a spiderweb of fine lines from age and heat. The tea is hot, slightly grassy, and just bitter enough to remind you you're awake. You sip slowly. She sits across from you. Still no words. Instead, she pulls out a folded fan and waves it lightly, not at you, but at the fire. The embers glow in response. Obedient, as always. A minute pass. Maybe 2. Then she says, "You came from the one with the pine tree." You blink. She doesn't look up. "I know the smell. That inn hangs on your robe like fog." You glance at your sleeve, half expecting to see the wooden beams woven into the fabric. But no, Just cotton. Slightly worn. Slightly warm. She pour more tea. It doesn't always appear, she adds, after another long pause. Not for everyone. Some pass right by. Never see the curtain. Never hear the water. You ask why? She shrugs. Some people are too loud. Others too certain. That makes you smile. You don't feel particularly certain about anything these days. Did you rest? She asks. You nod. She doesn't return the smile. Instead, she pulls something from beneath the table. A tiny pouch drawstring, silk, indigo dyed. She places it in front of you, for when the road gets loud again. You hesitate. She waves a hand, already done with the conversation. You thank her quietly, bowing just slightly deeper than necessary. Here's your quirky tidbit of the hour. Roadside tea stands were sometimes used as informal message relays. Locals would leave scraps of news with the vendor, who'd pass it to the next traveler going the right direction. Before postal systems, there were grannies and gossip, often more reliable. You tuck the pouch into your pack without opening it. Whatever it holds, it's not meant to be questioned yet. Maybe it's salt, or incense, or tea leaves meant to steep only on days when the wind changes direction. The woman rises, creaks in all the right places, and returns to the kettle. You stand, bow again, and resume your walk. The road narrows through a stretch of woods. The canopy above filters the sunlight, painting the path in patches of gold and shadow. The air smells like moss and pine needles. Your footsteps are muffled, your thoughts even more so. You think about the people you passed at the inn, the monk, the merchant, the child with the tea tray, the silent samurai. Were they real? Or did the inn draw them into being, like a stage calling forth actors just for your story? Historians still argue whether medieval inns like that were built primarily for rest or surveillance. Some documents suggest certain establishments were funded quietly by regional lords, not for profit, but for information. A traveler talks more freely after a hot bath and a warm meal. And what better place to listen than a building made of paper walls? You spot something hanging from a low branch just ahead. A strip of cloth faded, fluttering. A prayer ribbon, tied by someone asking for protection. You stop and study it. The knot is careful, tight. Someone took their time. You add nothing. You simply touch it, softly, and keep walking. Eventually, you emerge from the woods to find a crossroads. A sign stands in the center, wooden, weathered, the ink nearly erased by wind and rain. You can just barely make out the characters. One points north, toward a village whose name you can't read. One points west, toward mountains. And one points back the way you came. You pause, just for a breath. Not to decide, just to appreciate that you have the choice. The wind picks up slightly. You reach into your pack and touch the silk pouch the tea vendor gave you. Still warm, still mysterious. Still with you. You step forward, and the road receives you, without question. You walk. The path ahead is dusted with fallen leaves, though it's not quite autumn. The kind of early season drop that trees do when they're tired, or forget what month it is. Each leaf crunches faintly beneath your sandals, and you start to think that maybe the road is whispering back to you, syllable by syllable. The trees thin again, and that's when you hear its voices. Not many, just a few, conversing softly somewhere just ahead. You slow down, listening. The tone is calm, familiar even. Someone laughs a short, stifled bark that sounds like a man who rarely lets himself laugh, and instantly regrets it when he does. You step around a bend and find them. 3 travelers seated beneath a large pine tree beside the road. They've laid out a cloth with dried fish, rice cakes, and a small jug of sake that glints in the morning light like melted pearl. They look up at you, not startled, just aware. The oldest among them gestures to the open edge of the cloth. An invitation, no words. You sit, because the moment offers itself, and because your feet have started their daily protest already. They pour you a small cup of sake. It tastes like rice and wood smoke, and something you can't name. No one rushes to fill the silence. Eventually, the man to your left, a younger one with hands scarred from labor, asks, "You stayed at the inn, didn't you?" You raise your eyebrows. "The one with the old pine in the courtyard," he clarifies. You nod. The oldest smiles, as if that alone makes you part of the group. "I haven't seen it in 10 years, he says, "but I still dream of the sound the lantern made when it turned on." You sip your sake. The second man, quiet until now, adds, "I used to stay there on every return trip, always left with less than I brought, but more than I arrived with." Cryptic, but somehow true. You ask them if they know who built it. They shake their heads. "Depends on who's asking," the younger man says. "Depends on who's answering," the older one replies. The third finishes his cup and adds, "Some say it wasn't built, just found." You chew on that. Not the rice cake, though you do eat one. And it's surprisingly fresh, but the idea, found, not built. Like the inn was always there, waiting for someone to notice it. Here's your historical tidbit. Many early roadside inns in Japan were actually homes opened by villagers to accommodate passers-by. These hatago were often informal sometimes, just a place to sleep near the fire. Over time, these spaces evolved into more structured inns, but the line between home and haven was always blurred. Your quirky fact? Some inns had guest books where travelers left not just names, but poems, sketches, or bits of philosophy. A kind of medieval Yelp, but instead of 5 stars, they offered metaphors and inked cranes. One traveler reportedly wrote, "Slept like a plum pit, dreamed of snow I've never seen." The youngest of the 3 men beside you produces a bamboo flute and begins to play. Not a song, really, just breath through wood, notes strung together like forgotten thoughts. The road is silent while he plays. Even the crows hush. You close your eyes, and you're back there. Tatami under your feet. Steam from a bath. The sound of tea being poured just behind a paper door. It lives inside you now. That night, that room, that sound. When the flute ends, none of you speak for a while. Eventually, you rise. The men nod but say nothing. You bow, and they bow too, each to a different depth, each in their own rhythm. You walk on. The wind shifts, and you realize something else has shifted too. The way the road feels. Before, it was just a path. Now, it feels like part of the inn itself, an extended corridor, a hallway disguised as dirt and stone. Like you never really left. Like maybe, as long as you remember the scent of cedar, you're still halfway between the walls. You think about leaving something behind. Not a coin, not a note, just a pause. You stop at a bend in the road, where a low stone wall hugs the curve. Moss covers most of it. The sun finds a crack and slips between the stones like a lazy snake. You pull the silk pouch from your robe pocket. You don't open it. You just press it gently to your lips, then nestle it between 2 mossy rocks. Not an offering, not a loss, just an exchange. A small part of you stays here, so that when you come back, if you ever do, you won't need to knock. You'll already be expected. You move slowly now, not because your legs are tired, though they certainly are, but because the morning has softened everything. The sun filters through the trees like it's trying not to disturb anything. Even your thoughts seem to take their time, ambling behind you like a quiet companion who doesn't need to speak. The path narrows again, this time winding between low stone markers. Each one is half buried, moss-covered, with kanji carved so faintly you can't tell if they were names, prayers, or warnings. Probably all 3. A small shrine appears on your left. Just a wooden box, a roof barely taller than your waist, and a little bell hanging from a frayed cord. Someone's placed a bundle of wilted flowers at its base, petals curled like sleeping fingers. You pose. There's no sign asking you to pray, no instructions, no donation jar, but you bow anyway, not because you believe something specific, but because bowing feels appropriate when the world is this quiet. You keep walking. Soon, The trees give way to low hills, and beyond them, the horizon begins to flatten rice fields again, and narrow canals catching the light like silk ribbons. You can see distant figures in conical hats moving through the fields, bending, rising, bending again. And then you hear something new. Music. Not the wind in the pines kind. Real music. A drum beat. And yes, a flute. Higher pitched, playful. You follow the sound, curious now, until the path opens into a clearing where a small group has gathered. Farmers, merchants, travelers, a couple of barefoot children chasing each other around a stack of crates. At the center, a troupe of performers, 2 drummers, 1 flutist, and a woman in layered robes holding a fan. Her face is painted white, her movements graceful, deliberate. She dances without hurry, each step placed like it matters, which, in this culture, it absolutely does. No one speaks. They just watch. You take a place at the back of the crowd, your bundle still tucked under your arm, your feet itching but your attention caught. The dancer's robe shimmers with each turn, soft saffron, trimmed with deep blue. You think of the Okami's robe, same family of colors, a quiet echo. The performance tells a story, you realize. Not just movement, but narrative. There's something about a spirit lost in the mountains, mistaken identity, a search for home. You don't know the details, but your body recognizes the feeling. Displacement, return, longing. You look around. The others are just as transfixed. A farmer blinks like he hasn't blinked in minutes. A child chews on his thumb and doesn't even notice when another steals his snack. The music rises, drums tapping out a steady heartbeat, the flute fluttering like birds startled from the trees. And then, just as easily as it began, it ends. No applause, just a collective exhale. The dancer bows. The musicians do, too. And slowly, people start to move again. A few coins are tossed into a cloth on the ground. One man offers a small turnip, which the drummer accepts with a grin that suggests this isn't even the strangest thing he's been paid with today. You linger, and that's when the flutist approaches you. He's young, face still flushed from the performance, hair tied back in a lazy knot. He gestures at your bundle and asks, "You a traveler?" You nod. He nods back. "From the inn?" You raise an eyebrow. That's the 3rd time someone's asked without you mentioning it. "I've heard of it," he says, "but I've never seen it. Played near that hill twice. Never found the gate." You wonder aloud if maybe he wasn't tired enough to see it. He laughs. "Maybe I wasn't quiet enough." And he reaches into his sleeve and pulls out a tiny folded paper origami, a crane, perfectly creased, delicately balanced between his fingers. He presses it into your palm. "It's lucky," he says, "or unlucky. Depends on whether you believe it works." Then he's gone, rejoining the troupe as they begin packing their instruments. You unfold your hand. The crane stares back at you. Its wings are printed with kanji too small to read fully, but familiar in shape. You place it in your robe. Later, maybe, you'll unfold it, or maybe not. Maybe some things are better when they stay folded, like dreams you don't poke too hard. Here's your historical tidbit. Origami cranes became a popular symbol of peace and healing long after this era. But even in medieval times, folded paper held meaning. Samurai often folded paper charms before battle, tiny blessings or curses, depending on their mood. And the quirky fact? Performers like the ones you saw called Sarugaku troops were sometimes also spies. Their freedom of movement, public access, and habit of traveling from town to town made them perfect messengers or informants. It's unclear how often they actually spied, but everyone always wondered. The troupe finishes packing. The clearing empties. The drummers are already arguing over which road to take. The dancer disappears behind a cart, removing her hairpiece and yawning like someone who hasn't slept in a week. You move on. The path ahead is dappled with light. You step into the sun again, your robe tugged slightly by the breeze. And when you walk now, you feel the folded crane pressing lightly against your chest. A weightless thing, but somehow heavier than it looks. The road dips and rises gently now, like a calm sea beneath your feet. No steep climbs, no jagged rocks, just a rhythm that encourages thought without demanding it. You walk the way a poem breathes, measured, unhurried, unsure if it's headed for a rhyme or just drifting for the pleasure of movement. The wind shifts. Not much, just enough to bring a new scent on the breeze smoke, but sweet this time. Charcoal and honey, maybe chestnuts roasting over a fire. Your stomach perks up slightly, though you're not hungry. Just nostalgic. And then you hear it. Clinking, scraping, laughter. Not the sharp kind that cuts through the air, but the muffled sort that leaks from behind thin walls. You round a bend, and there it is. A roadside village, tucked against the curve of a hill like it was hiding and someone finally coaxed it out. Roofs of dark tile, buildings low and humble. A few hanging lanterns still lit despite the daylight. Vendors with small carts. A dog asleep in the middle of the road defiantly, like he owns the place. And of course, an inn, smaller than the one you left behind. Narrower. Bousier. This one's walls are wooden, not paper. Its door stands open, revealing stacked crates and the smell of soy and vinegar. You pause in front of it, peering inside. The innkeeper, a round man with a voice like a drum roll, waves you in. You decline, politely. You're not ready for another inn yet. Not so soon. Instead, you wander toward a food stall, its grill sizzling with skewered mochi, caramelized and just beginning to char at the edges. The vendor hands you one before you even ask. "Traveler," he says with a nod. "I can smell it." You blink. "Not the dust," he says. "The quiet. It clings." You pay him with a coin, more than it costs, but less than it's worth. The mochi burns your tongue delightfully. You chew slowly, watching the villagers move around you like a play unfolding without urgency. One old man feeds the stubborn dog scraps from a cloth bundle. Two girls try to carry a ceramic jar too large for them, laughing as it wobbles between their arms. A young woman sweeps her doorstep with deliberate grace, exactly the same way the innkeeper's daughter swept your room yesterday. Or was it 100 years ago? You sit on the edge of a stone well and let your legs dangle. The paper crane in your robe shifts slightly with your breathing. Still there, still light. And just when you think you're ready to leave, you hear something you didn't expect. Your name? Soft, unsure, hesitant, spoken like a question. You turn. No one. You scan the faces, the corners, the rooftops. Nothing. The villagers continue their day, unaffected. Maybe it wasn't your name. Maybe it was just a word that sounded like you. Or maybe it was memory, calling to see if you'd answer. You finish the last bite of mochi and stand. Here's your historical tidbit. In Edo period Japan, it wasn't uncommon for travelers to adopt temporary names while on the road, especially those seeking anonymity, escaping family duty, or just craving reinvention. Names were fluid, tied more to mood or occasion than paperwork. And your quirky fact? Some travelers reportedly believed that if you heard your true name spoken by a stranger, you were doomed to meet someone from your past. Most ignored it. A few turned around immediately. You take a breath and walk away from the village without looking back. You're not afraid of the past. You're just full. Content. Saturated with a kind of quiet that doesn't want to be shaken loose yet. The road reclaims you quickly, rising into low hills again. The sun climbs a little higher. Your shadow grows bolder in front of you, long and certain. You follow it like a guide. Eventually, you pass a small shrine, half hidden beneath a cedar. There's no bell, no gate, just a carved fox perched atop a mossy stone pedestal, eyes narrowed in eternal judgment or amusement. It's hard to tell. You bow to it anyway, just in case. The wind picks up again, carrying a faint sound you haven't heard since you left the inn. Thunk. You stop. No bamboo fountains here. No garden. no bathhouse. But the sound is perfect, familiar. Maybe it's coincidence. Maybe it's memory. Maybe the wind knows how to play tricks. You close your eyes, just for a moment, letting the breeze brush your face. And when you open them, the path looks different. Not new, not strange, just warmer, like someone swept it just before you arrived. By now, your feet have stopped protesting. They've resigned themselves to the rhythm of the road, accepting each step with a kind of stoic grace that only comes from surrender. The gravel crunches, the dust flutters up and settles again, and you become part of the landscape, no longer a visitor, but a moving piece of the puzzle. Up ahead, you spot a narrow wooden bridge, not wide, not grand, just a humble span crossing a shallow creek. The water glints in the midday sun, barely a trickle now in late summer, but still clear, still moving. Dragonflies hover like lazy sparks over the surface, their wings catching the light and flashing it back at you like secrets. You step onto the bridge and stop in the center. Lean on the railing. Breathe. The water below whispers against the stones. Not rushing, not hurrying, just going. Across the bridge, the path curves again, disappearing behind a tall grove of bamboo that clicks gently in the wind like an audience too polite to clap. You stand there a while, unsure why. Maybe it's the peace. Maybe it's because bridges have always been places of pause, halfway points, thresholds, spaces that invite reflection just by existing. You close your eyes, and for the briefest moment, you remember the sound of the inn's sliding doors, the way they whispered open, the soft swish of robes passing through a hallway, the low clink of a cup being set down with practiced care. It feels like a memory from far away, and yet, your body responds like it happened an hour ago. You smile to yourself. The road has done its work, or maybe the inn has. Either way, the world feels quieter now, like someone turned down the volume just enough for you to hear your own breath again. You cross the bridge. The bamboo grove welcomes you in a hush of green. Each stalk sways as you pass, brushing against its neighbor, passing messages only they understand. You wonder what they're saying about you. Probably something along the lines of, "Here comes another one," carrying silence like it's something rare. You emerge from the grove and find a small rest station, just a wooden shelter with a roof of palm thatch, a bench, and a stack of firewood bundled neatly in the corner. No one's here, but someone has clearly cared for this place. Someone swept the floor recently. Someone folded a blanket and left it tucked behind the bench. You sit, not because you're tired, though you are, but because the bench seems to want company. There's a scroll pinned to the back wall, held by two rusty nails. It reads, "The road bends not to confuse you, but to help you notice." You read it again, slower. It's not poetry, exactly. It's something else. A reminder, maybe, or a challenge. Historians still argue whether sayings like these were part of official road markers or just left behind by travelers who thought too much. The Tokugawa government posted signs, of course edicts, travel warnings, even moral advice. But this feels more personal, less like a rule, more like a wink. You rest your head against the wall for a moment, let your eyes close, and in that breathless pause, you hear footsteps. Not loud, not urgent, just soft, steady, and approaching. You sit up. An old man rounds the corner, leading a donkey with two sacks slung over its back. He nods at you. You nod back. He sits on the opposite end of the bench, pulling out a cloth bundle and unwrapping what looks like dried persimmons. He offers you one. You take it. Chew slowly. It tastes like memory soaked in sugar. He doesn't speak for a while. Then, finally, "You came from that place with the narrow hallway and crooked lamp, didn't you?" You pause. Persimmon half gone in your mouth. "I haven't been there in decades," he says. "But I remember the bath. Water smelled like cedar and regret. Endu." You laugh softly. He doesn't intimate. "Regret ages well," he adds. "Makes good heat." You ask him if he remembers the Okami. He closes his eyes, as if replaying her face from a dream. Then, she didn't speak much, but she had a way of listening that made you tell her things you didn't plan to. You nod. That sounds right. Here's your quirky fact of the hour. There are documented cases of innkeepers in Edo, Japan being asked to mediate local disputes, not because it was their job, but because they were considered neutral, trustworthy, and perpetually in the business of listening. Some even kept unofficial records of who quarreled with whom, and who made up over rice and pickles. The old man rises, dusts off his knees, adjusts the donkey's harness. Don't walk too fast, he says, or you'll miss where the sky bends. You don't ask what that means. You just bow. He walks off, donkey clopping behind, sacks swaying like pendulums. You sit a little longer. Let the persimmon finish its work. Then rise. You pass the scroll again, tracing the ink with your eyes. The road bends not to confuse you, but to help you notice. And you think, maybe you've been noticing things you weren't ready to notice before. That's what good sleep does. That's what quiet places do. That's what inns built from old wood and soft rules exist for. You keep walking. And sure enough, the road bends. The bend in the road isn't sharp. It curves gently, like a bow being drawn, as if the path itself is hesitant to interrupt your thoughts. On either side, tall grasses wave in the morning breeze, their feathery tops catching the light like soft flames. The sun is higher now, no longer tentative, but still kind, casting shadows long and golden across the road. You follow the bend, and there, tucked quietly beside a sloping hill, sits a wooden house with smoke rising from a thin chimney. Not quite a home, not quite a shop. One of those buildings that could be anything depending on the hour tea seller in the morning. Shrine guardian by dusk, rumor collector in between. A man in a faded indigo robe sits outside on a stool, sharpening a blade. Not a weapon. A sickle, you think. His movements are slow, measured. He hums as he works a song with no melody, just a rhythm that matches the scrape of steel against stone. He doesn't look up as you pass. Doesn't need to. Long road behind you, he says. You pose. He lifts the blade to the light, examines the edge. You smell like pine smoke and old tatami, he adds. You stayed at her inn. You ask who he means. The one with the hands that remember. Ah, the okami. You nod. He finally looks up. His face is lined but calm, like a field that's seen every season and stopped trying to predict the next. She still uses that kettle with a crack near the handle? He asks. You blink. You hadn't noticed a crack, but you did feel something like warmth that came from more than heat. He smiles faintly. She was kind to me once. I carved that kettle's lid. She never replaced it, even after the handle cracked. He sets the sickle down, pulls a small cloth bundle from his belt, unfolds it carefully. Inside, a few wood carvings, small ones. A fox, a cicada, a tiny bridge. Take one, he says, payment for memory. You choose the bridge. He nods. Good choice. That one took the longest. Had to carve the curve just right. You bow deeply in thanks, and he waves it off. No thanks needed. Just remember where you got it. You tuck the carving into your robe, next to the crane. Your little pocket museum grows heavier, in the best way. As you walk away, you glance back once. He's already sharpening again, humming his broken tune, lost in the rhythm of something older than explanation. Here's your historical tidbit. Many craftsmen in feudal Japan lived as semi-itinerant workers. They'd move from village to village, offering services in exchange for lodging or food. Their art wasn't always grand, but it was everywhere. Bridges, utensils, roof tiles, kettle lids. And your quirky fact? It was considered bad luck to throw away a broken teapot. Instead, people often patched them, not just out of thrift, but out of respect. Some even painted the cracks with lacquer and gold, an early form of kintsugi, the art of making broken things more beautiful. You keep walking, rubbing your thumb across the wooden bridge in your pocket. It's smooth but imperfect, tiny grooves left from the knife. A surface that holds the shape of effort. The road ahead rises into another gentle hill. And as you climb, the wind picks up again. But this time, it doesn't carry music. It carries scent, charcoal, soy, a hint of grilled fish, and laughter, open, unapologetic, unfiltered. You reach the top of the hill and look down. A small wayside festival is underway. Temporary stalls, paper lanterns strung across ropes, locals gathered in loose circles, sharing sake, gossip, and that strange human ability to celebrate without needing a reason. Children run between the stalls with sticky hands and half-eaten sweets. A woman is trying to coax a song from a three-stringed shamisen, missing more notes than she hits, but no one seems to mind. You descend into the scene slowly, like stepping into a warm bath. A man in a blue sash waves you over. Food's not great, but the company's worse, he jokes. You smile. He hands you a rice ball wrapped in a leaf. It's cold. It's perfect. You sit at a low bench beside him, chewing slowly, letting the flavor of sesame and salt anchor you to the moment. He nudges you with his elbow. You've got the face of someone who slept well in a quiet place. You chuckle. He nods. Yeah, I thought so. You ask if he knows the inn. He shrugs. I don't know names, but I know stillness when I see it on someone's face. The sun dips slightly behind a cloud. A flute starts up again, this one better than the last, though still wandering through its tune like it's exploring rather than performing. Here's the thing. You could stay. This village would welcome you. There's room at the fire. A sake bottle just beginning to empty. A storyteller preparing to stand and clear his throat. But the road tugs at you gently. Not out of impatience. Just out of habit. So you bow, thank your benchmate, and slip out of the circle before anyone asks your name. Back on the road, your feet feel lighter. Your pocket, heavier. Your mind, somewhere in between. You walk away from the festival slowly, not sneaking, just soft-footed, like someone leaving a party while the music's still playing, before the lanterns burn out, before anyone asks what's next. The road welcomes you back with its usual hush. Gravel crunches. Wind brushes the sleeves of your robe. The quiet is deeper now, after the sound and bustle. Not empty, just wide, like a room with high ceilings. You let it wrap around you. Your hands move without thinking, reaching into your robe, fingers brushing the little carved bridge. Still warm from your body heat. Still shaped like something that takes time to cross. And next to it, the paper crane, its wings folded just so. You wonder what you're collecting, exactly. Memories? Artifacts? Or just tiny proofs that you were here? The sun is dipping lower now. Not yet sunset, but the golden hour has begun, staining everything with that warm, syrupy light that makes the world look more forgiving. You come upon a long field of tall grass. It ripples in the breeze, each blade moving like a whisper trying to finish its sentence. The road cuts straight through it, a single worn trail packed hard by years of passing feet and hooves and wheels. You walk into it like a figure in an ink, painting nothing but horizon and wind. And then, something strange. A sound. Not music, not footsteps. Something soft. You stop. It comes again. A whistle? No wind through a reed flute. You glance around, and finally spot him. A boy, no more than 12, seated in the grass to your right. His robe is patched and dust-covered, his knees pulled up, arms wrapped around them. A bamboo flute rests against his lips. He pauses when he sees you. You bow your head slightly. He blinks, and then keeps playing. A tune you don't recognize. Simple, childlike, but there's something perfect in the way it falters and recovers. The way it repeats just enough to feel intentional. You stand there for the whole song, motionless, not wanting to break the air. When he finishes, he lowers the flute and watches you, then asks, "Are you coming from the mountain inn?" You nod. He nods back. They say people who sleep there walk quieter the next day. You smile. He reaches into the satchel at his side and tosses you something a small, folded paper shape. You catch it midair. A fox this time. Neatly creased, slightly smudged. You glance up, but he's already turned away, slipping into the grass, disappearing into the wind like a figure from an old folk tale. You hold the fox carefully, adding it to your growing museum of moments. Here's your historical tidbit. Foxes, or kitsune, were believed to be messengers of Inari, the god of rice and prosperity. They could be protectors or tricksters, or both. Depending on the tale, a fox might bless your path, or completely rearrange your destiny. And your quirky fact? Some travelers carried fox amulets carved from wood or bone, but others refused to even say the word kitsune out loud, fearing it would attract attention from the wrong kind of ears. You whisper a thank you anyway. To the boy, to the fox, to the moment. The road rises again, this time toward a low ridge. From the top, you can see everything stretching out ahead, villages like scattered stones, smoke curling into the sky, rivers tracing lazy lines through green valleys. Farther still, the blue blur of mountains fading into dusk. You sit, not out of exhaustion, but reverence. You pull out the fox, the crane, the bridge, line them up on the flat rock beside you. They look ridiculous and sacred at the same time, like a child's treasures or a monk's. You add nothing this time, just study them, the way the shadows stretch beside them, the way the light touches their edges like they're made of gold leaf. And you realize something. It's not the inn that changed you. It's everything since. The way you started listening more closely, the way you moved more slowly, the way you no longer need to ask where you're going. You're already there. Even if your feet keep moving, a breeze picks up, lifts the crane's wings slightly, as if reminding you that these things don't last, but they linger, in memory, in motion, in quiet moments like this. You repack the items carefully, stand, and walk into the wind. The sun begins to set behind you. Your shadow stretches ahead, and you follow it, not because it leads, but because it understands the path. The sun slides down the sky like a coin dropped into water, slow, deliberate, gone before you realize it. Shadows stretch long and soft across the road, and your steps grow quieter, as if the world is asking you to tread more gently now. You adjust your robe, tug it a little tighter. The warmth of the day is bleeding away, replaced by that first whisper of evening chill. The kind of air that smells faintly of cedar, dust, and the 1,000 meals cooked over fire before you ever came this way. You pass an old milestone marker. Stone, mossy, worn down by generations of glancing fingers. The inscription is barely legible now, just grooves, like the ghost of a sentence. You touch it anyway, not for information, for acknowledgement. It stood here before you. It'll stay long after. Somewhere beyond the trees, a hawk cries once, and then falls silent. You come upon a crossroads. Not a large one, just two dirt paths meeting like friends, shaking hands. No signs, no directions, no hint about which way leads to what. You pause, and then you see it. A small lantern, swinging gently from a low branch. Just a paper, one white with a brush-painted character that means listen or attend, depending on how you read it. It's not lit, not needed right now, but it feels like a marker, not official, not mandatory. You go right. The path narrows and bends into the woods. The trees close in a little, not menacing, just private. Like this stretch of road doesn't get many visitors. Your footsteps land on fallen leaves and soft earth. No more gravel, no more crunch, just hush. And then voices. Not loud, not clear, but nearby. You slow your pace, curious. Through the trees you see it, a fire. A small one, banked low, nestled in a circle of stones. Around it, 4 figures seated, cross-legged, faces lit orange by the flames. Shadows flickering across robes, hands, eyes. They haven't seen you yet. You pause at a respectful distance. Then one of them, an older woman with silver hair pulled into a knot, turns. She nods. You step closer. There's a space beside the fire, just wide enough for one more. They don't ask your name. They don't ask where you're going. They simply nod in quiet welcome. You sit. The fire crackles. Sparks rise, then disappear into the branches overhead. One of the men pours tea from a soot-blackened kettle. He offers you a cup. You bow and accept. It's bitter and smoky, the perfect flavor for a fire under trees. No one speaks for a while, and then the woman begins. A story. No preamble, no explanation, just begins. There was once a man who traveled too long, too far, and forgot what his voice sounded like. You sip your tea, she continues, voice slow, deliberate. He walked through rain and sun and snow, through seasons that didn't care he was tired, through towns where no one knew him, until he reached a place where the paper walls whispered. You glance up, she smiles faintly, eyes catching yours. She knows. In that place, they didn't ask where he'd been. They asked only if he wanted tea, and sleep, and silence. The others nod slowly. This is not a new story to them. She finishes. When he woke, he spoke aloud for the first time in years. Just one word, and no one remembers what it was. But ever since, the forest echoes when it hears that tone. Silence again. Then the youngest of the group, maybe 20, pokes the fire with a stick and mutters, I like stories that forget how they end. You do too. Here's your historical tidbit. Oral storytelling in feudal Japan was both entertainment and education. From firesides to roadside inns, travelers passed on myths, local histories, even weather reports, all dressed up as tales. Some were true, some weren't, but all were needed. And your quirky fact? Some inns employed Cataraib storytelling guests, given free lodging in exchange for their nightly tales. Their only rule? You never tell the same story twice in one region. The stories had to move, just like the road. You finish your tea. The woman refills your cup without asking. She starts another tale, this one about a boy who traded his shadow for a lantern that always pointed toward home. You're not sure how much is metaphor anymore, and you don't care. The fire warms your knees. The stories warm something deeper. You listen, and you sip, and you let the night carry you like a slow river. No one yawns. No one stands. Eventually, the fire fades to embers. The youngest lays back in the leaves. The old woman gathers her shawl. You stay seated until the silence wraps around you like a second robe. Then, quietly, you bow. The group doesn't say goodbye, but they nod again, and that's enough. You step back onto the path. The woods are darker now, but your steps are sure. You're not walking to anywhere. You're just walking, with the taste of fire on your breath and the sound of stories stitched into your chest. The forest seems to hold its breath as you step away from the firelight. The path narrows further, winding beneath ancient cedars, whose trunks are gnarled like the hands of old storytellers. The air is cooler now, touched with the scent of damp earth and pine needles. Your footsteps fall soft and steady. The silence is no longer empty, but filled with a kind of presence, as if the trees themselves are listening. You pause to run your fingers along the rough bark of one massive cedar. The texture is coarse, yet alive with tiny wriggling insects and faint sap smells. You imagine centuries of seasons folded into its rings. How many travelers have leaned here, seeking strength or comfort? The moon begins to peek through the canopy, silvering the leaves. You stop to look up, tracing the constellations you barely remember from childhood, their shapes tangled and shifting. Nearby, a small owl hoots a brief, curious sound. You smile and whisper back, "Not yet." As you move deeper into the woods, you notice a faint glow ahead. Not the harsh light of a lantern, but a soft, shimmering aura, like fireflies gathered in a dance. You approach cautiously and find a small clearing bathed in that gentle glow. In the center, a stone basin filled with clear water reflects the moonlight, surrounded by smooth stones and delicate wildflowers. You kneel and cup your hands, drinking the cool water. It tastes crisp, pure like the first breath of morning. Historians still debate whether these tsukubai basins were purely functional, meant for ritual purification, or if their placement in nature was intended to invite contemplation and peace. Either way, their presence signals a pause, a sacred moment along the journey. Your quirky tidbit? Some travelers believe that washing your hands in these basins washed away not just physical dirt, but also the worries of the road, giving you a fresh start, even if the miles ahead were long. You sit back on your heels, letting the water drip from your fingers, and close your eyes. The forest hums quietly, the rustle of leaves, the distant call of night birds, the soft sigh of the wind weaving through the branches. You breathe deeply, feeling the cool night air fill your lungs. You think about the stories you heard by the fire, the man who lost his voice, the boy who traded his shadow. You realize your own story is beginning to fold in on itself, layers overlapping like the paper walls of that inn. The journey isn't just a passage through space, it's a slow unwrapping of something inside. You stand and take one last look at the basin. Then you rise, brushing leaves from your robe, and step back onto the path. The glow fades behind you. The forest closes in, and you continue forward. The path narrows further, winding between ancient trees whose branches reach across, like the arms of long-lost friends beckoning you onward. The soft murmur of the night carries on the breeze, whispering secrets you almost catch but never quite understand. Somewhere close, the faint rustle of a small animal moving through the underbrush reminds you that you're sharing this moment with creatures who have called this forest home long before you arrived. Your steps slow as the path becomes carpeted with thick moss, softening your footfalls, muffling the world into a deeper silence. The air smells of earth and damp wood, mixed with the faintest hint of something floral, perhaps the scent of mountain lilies growing just off the trail. You reach out, letting your fingers brush against the delicate petals, their cool softness a gentle contrast to the warmth you still carry from the day. A low owl hoots again, its call steady and unhurried. You pause, letting the sound settle into your bones, grounding you in the present moment. The moon peeks through a break in the canopy, casting silver patterns on the forest floor. It feels like a quiet blessing. You keep moving, guided more by intuition than sight now. The path opens into a small clearing, where the ruins of an old stone shrine rest, half covered in vines and moss. You approach slowly, reverently, sensing the weight of countless prayers whispered here long ago. The carved figures on the stone are worn, their details softened by time, but the energy of the place is undeniable, like it remembers every visitor who knelt before it. You kneel beside the shrine, placing your hands on the cool stone. For a moment, you close your eyes and breathe deeply, feeling the pulse of history beneath your fingertips. It's a reminder that every journey, no matter how solitary, is part of something larger, a thread woven into the vast tapestry of time. Historians still debate the extent to which roadside shrines like this served as spiritual waypoints for travelers versus their roles in local village worship. Some argue these shrines were as much about community identity as personal faith. Your quirky tidbit. In some regions, travelers believe that leaving small offerings, stones, coins, or even folded paper cranes at shrines ensured safe passage and protection from malevolent spirits lurking on the road. You reach into your robe and pull out the paper crane and wooden bridge from your collection, placing them gently beside the shrine. The carved fox remains tucked close to your heart. You step back and bow deeply, honoring the space and your own journey. The forest breathes around you, alive with nighttime sounds, a gentle rustling of leaves, the distant splash of a stream, the soft chirp of crickets. You stand and continue down the path, feeling the night fold around you like a familiar cloak. The road ahead is still long, but you carry with you something intangible now, a quiet sense of belonging, of being seen, of coming home, The forest gradually thins as you follow the winding path, the canopy lifting to reveal a sky strewn with stars. Each one twinkles softly, distant fires in the vast darkness, ancient and steady. The air has cooled, carrying a crispness that bites just enough to remind you you're still alive, still moving. You come upon a small clearing bathed in silver moonlight. In the center stands a solitary cherry blossom tree, its branches heavy with delicate pale pink flowers that seem almost to glow in the night. A light breeze stirs the petals, sending a few drifting down like snowflakes settling on the earth. You pause beneath the tree, tilting your head back to watch the petals fall. They land silently on your shoulders, your arms, the ground around you. It's a moment suspended between time and breath, the world holding its quiet breath with you. You reach out and catch a blossom between your fingers. Its softness is fleeting, a whisper of spring amid the cool night. The scent is subtle, sweet, and elusive. You inhale deeply, letting it fill your senses. Nearby, the faint sound of water trickling reminds you of the creek you crossed earlier. Somewhere just beyond the clearing, the soft tapping of the bamboo fountain echoes faintly, a gentle heartbeat in the stillness. You sit on a moss-covered stone beneath the cherry tree, pulling your robe tighter around you. The wooden bridge carving and paper crane rest lightly in your lap, treasures gathered along your journey now feeling like talismans of endurance. Historians still debate the significance of cherry blossoms in medieval Japanese culture. Were they symbols of fleeting beauty, reminders of mortality, or simply a beloved part of the seasons? Perhaps all of these. Their delicate blossoms bloom brilliantly but briefly, much like the moments we hold dear. Your quirky tidbit. Some travelers believed that sleeping beneath a blooming cherry tree granted peaceful dreams and protection from restless spirits. Others claimed the petals whispered secrets to those willing to listen. You close your eyes, feeling the night settle around you like a soft shawl. The breeze picks up slightly, stirring the blossoms again, sending a flurry of petals into the air. You smile. There is a story here. Not just one you've heard, but one you've lived. A journey marked not by distance, but by moments. By sights, sounds, scents, and quiet discoveries. You stand, brushing petals from your sleeves. The road calls once more. But for now, you carry the cherry blossoms with you, in memory, in spirit, and in heart. You step back onto the path, each step lighter than before. The night embraces you. The journey continues. The night deepens as you leave the cherry blossom clearing behind. The path becomes less defined, the edges blurring into undergrowth and shadow. But the road remains steady beneath your feet, guiding you onward like an old friend who doesn't need words to communicate. You notice the soft crunch of dry leaves beneath your sandals, and the occasional snap of a twig somewhere in the dark. The forest seems alive with quiet movements, creatures scurrying, wings fluttering, unseen eyes watching. But there is no fear, only a sense of being part of something vast and ancient. A cool mist begins to rise, curling around the trees and wrapping the world in a translucent veil. The scent of damp earth intensifies, mingling with the faint aroma of pine and wildflowers. The air is thick with the promise of rain, but it holds for now, as if giving you a moment's grace. You come to a small wooden bridge crossing a narrow stream. The water is clear and fast-moving, bubbling over smooth stones and fallen leaves. You pause to look down, watching the reflections ripple and dance. Somewhere beneath the surface, tiny fish dart like quicksilver shadows. A single lantern hangs from a post near the bridge, its flame flickering in the breeze. You reach out and touch the post, feeling the roughness of the wood, the coolness of the night. Historians still debate the extent to which bridges in rural Japan were seen as spiritual thresholds, points of transition not just in geography but in life. Some believed crossing a bridge could cleanse the soul, wash away bad luck, or mark the beginning of a new chapter. Your quirky tidbit. Travelers often left small offerings at bridges, coins, folded paper cranes, or even personal trinkets, as tokens of gratitude or requests for protection on the road ahead. Sometimes, those offerings were forgotten, becoming part of the bridge's story. You walk across slowly, listening to the water's song beneath you. Each step is a gentle acknowledgement of passage and progress. On the other side, the path climbs steadily into a grove of cedar trees, their tall trunks rising like ancient pillars toward the night sky. The scent here is stronger, resin and pine, sharp and invigorating. You breathe deeply, letting the aroma fill your lungs, clearing your mind. The forest here feels sacred, untouched. You imagine monks walking this path centuries ago, their robes whispering against the leaves, their chants carried softly on the wind. You think of the inn again, the warmth, the tea, the paper walls, the soft thunk of the bamboo fountain. You realize how those moments have settled inside you, becoming part of your own story. The path begins to level out, and you spot a small clearing ahead. A campfire burns low, smoke curling lazily into the night. A solitary figure sits nearby, wrapped in a cloak, tending the flames. They look up as you approach, their face illuminated by firelight kind eyes, weathered but welcoming. Without words, they gesture to the fire, inviting you to sit. You accept. The flames crackle softly, a comforting rhythm in the stillness. You share the silence, the warmth, the quiet understanding that comes from two travelers meeting on the road. Here's your historical tidbit. Many remote travelers relied on chance encounters like this, shared fires and stories under the stars, to sustain their spirits and sense of connection in a world that often felt vast and isolating. And your quirky fact? In some regions, travelers believed that sharing a fire with a stranger forged a bond that transcended words and time, an unspoken pact of mutual respect and protection on the journey ahead. You sit close to the fire, feeling the heat on your face and the weight of the night around you. The road stretches endlessly beyond the glow, but for now, you rest and listen to the quiet song of the world. The firelight flickers softly, casting dancing shadows on the trees around you. The stranger beside you shifts, pulling a small bundle from their pack. Inside, a handful of dried persimmons and a clay cup. They offer you both without a word, and you accept gratefully. The fruit is sweet and chewy, a perfect counterpoint to the bitter tea that follows. You savor the simple exchange, feeling the warmth of shared kindness in the cool night air. The stranger finally speaks, voice low and steady, weaving a tale of a mountain path once traveled by a wandering poet. His verses were said to enchant the very stones, making the earth hum beneath his feet. You listen, enraptured not just by the story, but by the rhythm of their voice, a steady pulse in the quiet night. As the tale unfolds, you find your own thoughts drifting, weaving into the story like a thread joining a tapestry. Historians still debate whether many of these wandering poets actually existed, or if they were mythic figures embodying the restless spirit of travel itself. But their legacy lives on in the songs and stories passed from traveler to traveler. Your quirky tidbit? Some travelers carried small notebooks of poetry, scribbling verses under starlight or in the flickering glow of inns, sharing their words as currency when coins ran low. The fire dwindles to glowing embers, and the stranger stirs, preparing to continue their journey. They offer you a parting gift, a small carved bead, worn smooth from years of handling. A talisman, they say, for safe travels and quiet nights. You bow deeply, accepting the gift as a promise. The path ahead is dark but inviting. You stand, the weight of the night settling comfortably on your shoulders. You step forward, feeling the bead warm in your palm. The stranger fades into the shadows, their footsteps muffled by the soft earth. You walk on. The road is long, but you are not alone. The night air carries a fresh chill as you leave the glow of the campfire behind. Your footsteps fall steady on the soft earth, the bead warming your palm with a quiet reassurance. The path winds upward now, tracing the curve of a hill that seems to hold the stars themselves. Above you, the sky is a vast expanse of midnight blue, scattered with constellations that look older than any story told tonight. You trace their shapes with your eyes, wondering if travelers centuries ago used these same stars to find their way, or if they simply looked up to feel less alone. The trees thin, and the wind picks up, carrying with it the scent of salt and distant sea spray. You realize the ocean must be near, though the sound of waves is just a murmur on the horizon, like a secret whispered between the night and the shore. You descend gently toward the coast, where the path opens onto a rocky beach bathed in moonlight. The waves lap softly against smooth stones, their rhythm steady and timeless. You sit on a large boulder, the cool air brushing against your skin, and watch the water dance. Here, the world feels vast and quiet, a place where land meets sea, and time seems to pause. You pull the paper crane and wooden bridge from your robe, setting them carefully on the rock beside you. The carved fox remains tucked close to your heart. The ocean breeze picks up, swirling around you, carrying the faint scent of seaweed and salt. You close your eyes, letting the sound of the waves wash over you. Historians still debate how coastal travelers in medieval Japan navigated these shorelines, whether by stars, landmarks, or stories passed down from fishermen and monks. The sea was both a pathway and a mystery, a force of nature to be respected and feared. Your quirky tidbit? In some fishing villages, travelers believed that the spirits of the sea could grant safe passage, but only if offerings of rice and sake were left on the shore at dusk. Forgetting these rituals could mean storms, or worse. You breathe deeply, feeling the ocean's pulse sync with your own. The night stretches ahead, endless and inviting. You stand and look back one last time. The path behind you is faint now, almost swallowed by the night. But the journey continues. With the sea as your witness, you step forward. The salty breeze brushes against your face as you walk along the shoreline, the cool air carrying the tang of seaweed and driftwood. Your footsteps make soft impressions in the damp sand, only to be washed away moments later by a gentle wave. The moon hangs low, its silver light dancing on the crest of each swell, casting a shimmering path that seems to lead you somewhere beyond sight. The rhythmic sound of the surf soothes your mind, washing away the last remnants of weariness. You feel as if you've stepped into a world where time bends, where the usual rules of day and night, of past and future, blur softly like the mist rolling in from the sea. Ahead, a cluster of small fishing boats rest, their hulls rocking slowly in the calm bay. Nets hang loosely over wooden beams, and lanterns flicker faintly aboard one vessel, hinting at life preparing for the early morning catch. You pause near the water's edge and spot a worn stone marker half buried in sand. Weathered kanji, almost illegible, hints at a shrine dedicated to the sea deity, guarding travelers and fishermen alike. Small offerings, smooth pebbles, scraps of cloth, and a few faded paper cranes are scattered around its base, left by those seeking protection or safe passage. You kneel briefly, placing your own small carved fox beside the shrine, a silent gesture of gratitude and respect. Historians still debate the nature of sea worship in medieval Japan, but it is clear that coastal communities held deep reverence for the ocean's power, often blending Shinto rituals with local folklore to appease its many moods. A quirky fact for you: some fishermen believed that certain sea spirits could take the form of foxes, weaving a mystical connection between the land and the sea, between the animals of forest and ocean alike. You breathe in the salt air, feeling the cool mist on your skin, and let your gaze drift toward the horizon where the first hints of dawn begin to soften the dark. The journey continues, but for now, you are held by the sea's quiet embrace. The sky softens, colors shifting from deep indigo to pale lavender, then streaks of pink and gold. Dawn is breaking. The ocean's surface reflects this gradual awakening, turning from silver to warm amber. The cool night mist begins to lift, revealing more of the shoreline, the jagged rocks, the tide pools filled with tiny life, and the delicate footprints of seabirds trailing along the sand. You rise from the stone beside the shrine, feeling the dampness beneath your feet as the tide recedes. The carved fox and paper crane rest quietly in your robe, silent witnesses to the night's passage. As you walk away from the beach, the path leads you toward a cluster of pine trees perched on a small hill. Their dark green needles contrast sharply with the brightening sky. The scent of pine is sharp and invigorating, filling your lungs with every breath. You climb the hill slowly, the earth soft beneath your feet, scattered with fallen needles and the occasional cone. At the summit, a small stone lantern stands sentinel, weathered but dignified, its carved pattern softened by moss and age. From here, you can see the village you passed the night before, nestled in a valley surrounded by rolling hills. Smoke rises gently from chimneys, promising warmth and life. Beyond, the mountains stretch in blue-gray waves, distant and mysterious. You pause, taking it all in: the land, the sea, the sky, feeling the steady rhythm of the world pulse beneath your feet. Historians still debate how much control rural villages had over their roads and inns during the medieval period, but it is clear that these communities were tightly knit, relying on travelers as both a source of information and trade. Your quirky tidbit? Stone lanterns, or toro, were originally used in Buddhist temples, but gradually became common along roads and paths to guide travelers. Their soft glow a symbol of hope and guidance through darkness. You sit beside the lantern, feeling the rough stone under your fingertips, and reflect on the journey so far: the inns, the fires, the quiet roads, and the small tokens you've collected. The road continues to wind forward, inviting you to follow. With the first rays of sunlight warming your face, you rise and begin to descend toward the village. The village awakens slowly beneath the morning sun. Smoke curls from chimneys, mingling with the crisp air, and the soft murmur of voices drifts from open doorways. Children run barefoot along dirt paths, their laughter ringing out like a melody as they chase each other through fields of blooming flowers. The scent of fresh bread, if only you had any, mingles faintly with the aroma of drying herbs hanging from wooden beams. You walk through the heart of the village, your footsteps muted against worn stones and packed earth. The market stalls begin to bustle, with life vendors arranging vegetables, weaving baskets, and calling out their wares in friendly, practiced tones. A woman balances a basket of freshly baked rice cakes on her head, smiling as she passes. You pause by a small shrine tucked between two buildings. The moss-covered stone steps lead to a modest altar decorated with offerings of rice and sake. The shrine feels alive, pulsing softly with the devotion of those who have passed through. You kneel and place the paper crane and wooden bridge near the offerings, feeling a quiet sense of belonging. Nearby, a group of elders gather around a low table, playing a game of Go. The sound of black and white stones clicking against the wooden board punctuates the morning air. Their faces are lined with years, but their eyes sparkle with sharpness and warmth. A young boy approaches, carrying a bundle of fresh herbs. He looks at you curiously but says nothing. Instead, he offers a small sprig of mint, which you accept with a nod. You continue your walk, the village winding toward a small shrine at the edge of town. The torii gate stands tall and proud, framing a path that disappears into the dense forest beyond. You hesitate, sensing that the journey beyond this point will be different, quieter perhaps, but no less profound. Historians still debate the relationship between rural shrines and traveler safety, but many agree that such places were spiritual waypoints, offering protection and guidance on uncertain roads. Your quirky fact: in some villages, the arrival of travelers was marked by ritual ceremonies performed at these shrines, blessing the journey and ensuring safe passage. You take a deep breath, feeling the cool morning air fill your lungs, and prepare to step beyond the village. The road ahead waits patiently. You step beneath the torii gate, its vermilion columns glowing softly in the morning light. The air feels different here, still charged with unseen energy, as if the forest beyond holds secrets spoken only in whispers and shadows. The path narrows, winding between towering cedar trees whose trunks rise straight and tall, their bark rough and mottled with age. Your footsteps fall softly on the carpet of fallen leaves and pine needles, the crunch muted by years of quiet growth. The scent of moss and earth fills your senses, grounding you in the present even as your mind drifts back to the inns, the fires, the soft sounds of last night. Ahead, a small wooden shrine emerges, nestled against a moss-covered stone wall. The carved wooden doors are closed, but you can sense a presence inside, a silent guardian watching over this place. You kneel and bow deeply, paying respects to the spirits that dwell here. A gentle breeze stirs, carrying with it the faint sound of a flute, a melody both haunting and familiar, echoing through the trees. Historians debate whether many forest shrines were primarily spiritual sanctuaries or served as markers for travelers navigating difficult terrain. Either way, their presence offered comfort to those journeying far from home. Your quirky fact? Some shrines were maintained by itinerant priests called Yamabushi, who practiced mountain asceticism and were believed to possess mystical powers. Their presence was a blend of religion, folklore, and practical guidance for travelers. You stand and continue along the path, the flute song lingering in your mind like a thread tying past to present. The woods deepen around you, shadows lengthening as the sun climbs higher. You feel the road pulling you forward, not just through the forest, but deeper into the story you've been walking all along. The journey continues. The forest thickens, shadows pooling beneath the towering cedars, as sunlight filters through the dense canopy in mottled patterns. The air grows cooler, rich with the scent of damp earth and fallen leaves. Your footsteps crunch softly, muffled by the thick layer of pine needles carpeting the forest floor. You pause at a fork in the path, where a weathered wooden sign stands crookedly. The faded kanji are barely legible, worn by years of rain and wind. You hesitate, then choose the left fork, guided more by instinct than certainty. The trail narrows, winding past ancient stone lanterns dusted with moss, their flickering shadows dancing in the dim light. The silence here feels sacred, as if the trees themselves are holding their breath, watching your passage with quiet reverence. A sudden rustle in the underbrush startles you briefly, but a flash of brown fur reveals a small fox darting away, its eyes glinting with mischief. You smile, recalling the carved fox nestled safely in your robe pocket. As you continue, the forest opens into a small clearing, where a crystal-clear spring bubbles up from the earth. Its waters shimmer with a clarity that seems almost otherworldly. You kneel and cup the cool water in your hands, drinking deeply. The taste is fresh and pure, a moment of renewal. Historians debate whether such springs were viewed simply as natural resources or imbued with spiritual significance, believed to cleanse both body and soul for weary travelers. Your quirky fact. In some regions, travelers would leave offerings of rice or sake at springs to honor the kami spirits believed to inhabit the waters and to seek protection on the road ahead. You refill your water pouch and sit for a moment, letting the peaceful energy of the spring wash over you. Rising, you notice the sun filtering through the trees in golden shafts, illuminating the path forward. You step onto the trail once more, feeling lighter, refreshed. The journey stretches onward, and so do you. The path leads you out of the forest and onto rolling hills that stretch beneath a wide, open sky. The grass here is tall and soft, brushing against your legs as you walk. The air is warmer, filled with the scent of wildflowers and fresh earth. You pause to look back at the dense tree line, now a dark ribbon against the horizon. The forest feels like a world you've left behind, yet it remains a part of you, its whispers still echoing in your mind. Ahead, you spot a small wooden bridge crossing a shallow stream. The water sparkles under the sun, rippling gently as it flows over smooth stones. A family of ducks paddles near the bank, their quiet chatter adding life to the serene scene. You cross the bridge carefully, feeling the wood creak softly beneath your feet. On the far side, a dirt road winds toward a distant village, smoke rising from chimneys and the faint sound of voices carried by the breeze. You follow the road, your pace easy and unhurried, Along the way, you pass fields of rice paddies, their surfaces shimmering with water and sunlight. Farmers work steadily, their movements practiced and rhythmic. The village grows nearer, and you hear the laughter of children playing. The warmth of home and community fills the air, wrapping around you like a familiar cloak. You stop at the village entrance, taking in the sights and sounds, the bustle of market stalls, the scent of cooking fires, the smiles of those who pause to greet you. Historians still argue how much influence travelers had on the culture and economy of rural villages. But it's clear that these crossroads were places of exchange of goods, stories, and friendship. Your quirky fact: some villages held annual festivals to welcome travelers, offering food, entertainment, and blessings for safe journeys ahead. You step forward into the heart of the village, feeling the road behind you and the road ahead, both woven into your story. The journey is far from over. But for now, you have arrived. You wander through the village streets, your footsteps blending with those of locals going about their day. The wooden houses line the paths, their paper windows glowing softly in the morning light. Laundry flutters on lines, and the distant sound of a temple bell rings out, slow and deliberate, marking the passing of time. You pause at a small tea house, where the air smells of roasted barley and sweet red bean paste. Inside, patrons sit quietly, sipping steaming cups and sharing whispered conversations. You consider stopping but decide to keep moving. A traveler's rest is a promise to oneself, not an obligation. Along the way, you notice a narrow alley tucked between two buildings. It's shaded and quiet, lined with stone lanterns and small shrines adorned with offerings. The scent of incense lingers, delicate and calming. You step into the alley, feeling the world hush around you. The soft murmur of prayers and the gentle flicker of candlelight create a sacred atmosphere. You find a place to sit on a low stone bench, pulling from your robe the fox carving, the paper crane, and the wooden bridge. You arrange them carefully, as if creating a small shrine of your own. Each piece tells a story: a night in a quiet inn, a shared fire, a path through the forest. Together, they form a mosaic of memory and meaning. You close your eyes, breathing deeply, feeling the village's pulse beneath your feet. The road has brought you here, but it is the moments along the way that have shaped you. Historians still debate whether travelers of this era viewed their journeys as physical, spiritual, or both. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in between, a path that weaves through the land and the soul alike. Your quirky tidbit: some travelers carried small keepsakes from each place they visited, believing these tokens held protective power and connected them to the people and stories they encountered. You rise, leaving the alley with a renewed sense of purpose. The road beckons once more, but tonight, you carry the village with you. The sun begins its slow descent, casting a warm amber glow over the village and the surrounding hills. Shadows lengthen, stretching like lazy fingers across the dirt roads and rooftops. The air carries the comforting sounds of evening, the chatter of families gathering for supper, the distant ringing of a temple bell, and the gentle rustle of leaves stirred by a cooling breeze. You pause at the edge of the village, turning to take one last look back. The houses seem smaller now, more intimate, as if they had existed only for the briefest moment in time. The soft glow from lanterns flickers behind paper windows, inviting and familiar. The road ahead is quiet, a ribbon of earth winding toward unknown destinations. Your footsteps fall softly, steady and sure, carrying you forward with the gentle determination of someone who has traveled far, not just across land, but within. You feel the weight of your gathered treasures: the carved fox, the paper crane, the wooden bridge, and the bead nestled safely in your robe. Each one a piece of the journey, a story held close. As the sky deepens into twilight, a soft chorus rises, crickets singing, frogs croaking, and the distant call of nightbirds. The world prepares to rest, and so do you. You find a quiet spot beneath a spreading tree, its branches overhead offering shelter and solace. You settle onto the soft earth, pulling your robe tighter and laying your treasures beside you like a sacred offering. The night wraps around you like a comforting shawl, gentle and warm. Your breathing slows, syncing with the rhythm of the world settling into sleep. You close your eyes, the memories of the journey weaving through your mind, lantern-lit inns, whispered stories, shared fires, winding paths, and quiet moments of grace. You feel the road inside you now, a steady current flowing beneath your skin, and as you drift into sleep, the soft thunk of a bamboo fountain echoes in the distance, a lullaby for the traveler, a promise that the journey continues, even in dreams. Sleep well. End of script. Sweet dreams.